tested it last night, but
It wouldn't be a live stream if there weren't technical difficulties.
so we should be live. We're live. I don't like how I pay for this, and it's got a big Zoom logo in the bottom corner. All right. Get all this stuff down out of the way. So let some people come in. We got a couple people coming in already. We got Tim Burnham. We got Wolf Warner. Everyone knows Wolf Warner. We got Will Delgado. Joseph, I don't want to butcher your last name, so I'm just going to say Joseph S. Because I butcher names. Jack butchers names, but we're not we're gonna do our best not to tonight. We got Luis Ramirez, Comics and Pops. We are here to talk Dead End Kids. We got the man, the Ringo Award-winning author, Frank Gogol, with us. We'll get to him in just a minute. But before we do, I want to introduce also, everyone knows my co-host, Jack DeMeo. How the hell are you doing, bud?
Oh, man, I'm good. I'm excited because we talk a lot of comics on here. And, this is our channel, so we can go ahead and be honest, right? The comics we love the most are independent creator-owned comics. There's nothing that I get more excited about talking to especially the creators of these comics. There's nothing sweeter than that. And multiple time Simpleman's Comics guest, Frank Gogol himself, is here to talk about a book that I personally am very excited about and have been waiting for. So Frank, welcome to Simpleman's Comics again.
What's going on, guys?
Always happy to have you here, Frank. So we had you on here before we talked Dead End Kids, but the last time we had you on here, we talked about an upcoming comic book, just like we're having you this time. Mm-hmm. That upcoming comic book was No Heroine, and it seemed to be doing just as well as Dead End Kids. So there's something with your writing, or something with the water you're drinking, or the ink that you're using on these pages. But
I'm a con man.
You're a hustler. I'll give you that. But before we get into Dead End Kids, give us an update on No Heroine. What's going on with that? How's the reception? The reception we've been seeing has been absolutely fantastic. A lot of people, I've had people say they can't find a copy of issue #1, no matter how hard they look. I'm talking about a little buddy of ours we know, Mel V. Jack.
Oh, really?
Yeah. The response has been excellent. I set out with a goal. I always set myself like goals. And what I wanted to do with the first issue of No Heroine was double the pre-orders from Dead End Kids #1. And the book solicited in April, which was the first month that comic shops didn't get books this year. So that goal kind of like got less likely as time went on. And eventually I said, well, if we do like 10% of the pre-orders, and then it was like, if the book ever comes out. Against all odds, the book ended up coming out a week late, which can't really complain about that. And we did a little more than double, so we hit the goal and then some, which was great. The reception critically and from readers has just been phenomenal. Some of the kindest words I've ever gotten have been about this book. And the sales didn't really drop off from 1 to 2 or 2 to 3. The last issue drops tomorrow. So, we're looking at the tail end of it. And like, all in all, it's been an awesome experience. Like, I'm really, when you have a book that does really well, like Dead End Kids, you wonder if it was something in the water, if it was you. And when you have another book come up, you really worry, like, all right, I hit a home run last time. Am I going to foul out this time? But happy to report that, the Red Sox are up 2-0, bottom of the 9th. So we're doing all right.
You're like the Dave Chappelle of indie comics over here. We're putting the pressure on yourself. But so before we get into the new, we got Dead End Kids. We're not even calling it volume 2 because it's almost a standalone story, calling it the Suburban Job. But Dead End Kids #1, we talked about it on this channel. A lot of other YouTubers have talked about it. It was an indie comic that took off. The story is fantastic. Can you let our viewers know that might not be aware of it, a little bit about Dead End Kids, the first story, before we get into this next one?
Yeah, so Dead End Kids, the first volume that we're calling it now, is it's the story of three friends in 1999 who are trying to solve their friend's murder. So I think Stand By Me meets the Hardy Boys, but darker and a little more gritty, a little more violent, sort of a coming of age grunge story, if you will. But at its core, it's really like the story of these kids who come from like really kind of messed up home lives and are kind of a little fucked up themselves, and they've got one another to take care of each other, and that's kind of how they get by. Like it's really about childhood trauma and like sort of not to get too fluffy about it, but like the power of community and stuff like that. So it's it's a murder mystery, but really at its core it's about friendship and getting through the hard times, and the kind of things that happen to us as kids that we're not equipped to deal with, and how we deal with them anyway.
I will say, if the viewers, if they haven't read Dead End Kids Volume 1, there's a link in the description of this live stream, and it'll be available after the live stream on demand. That takes you right to Source Point Press site where you can get that Volume 1 trade paperback. It's like $9.99 on there, or what, $4.99, I think, for PDF version.
Yeah, we worked really hard to make sure that the book was a quality trade paperback, but it was also really affordable, like a really inexpensive point of entry. So the trade is cheaper than buying the floppy issues.
Well, especially
Way
with
cheaper.
yeah, it's with the secondary market value on the
Oh yeah, like 400% cheaper.
right today. And that's the thing is, I remember when it came out. It came out right at a time when Source Point Press was really starting to build some momentum as a publisher. There was already some momentum from some previous releases, some things like Bob Sally had done. But Dead End Kids, not to say anything about anything else Source Point Press has done or any other publisher, but it just had a different feel and vibe to it. You and I have had a conversation before, and I've said this, and I'm not shy about saying this when I feel it. Like, it immediately felt cinematic, and you could connect with the characters. There's definitely comics that give you that feel, but it's not every one. And when you feel it, you know it. And what was great about Dead End Kids, and you mentioned the drop off in sales with no heroine, that it didn't really necessarily exist. That's something I think that's been consistent in my experience reading Dead End Kids and no heroine, is that the quality, you don't tend to be one of those writers who leans on issue one. And there's a lot that will give you a whole lot in issue one, sell you on issue one, and then slowly build the story beyond there. The way that you tell your story, the way these mini series are very like compact and action packed, the story is very balanced. So I think that that's one thing that's very unique. Dead End Kids, even in the secondary market, we saw issues 2 and 3 doing very well. None of the issues could you find at stores for cover price post release. And we're seeing that with no heroine. I think we're going to see that here with the upcoming Suburban Job.
So we're getting more people in the chat. I just want to give shout out to people in the chat real quick. We got Lala Schultze, one of the best Simple Man's Comics family members and huge Kanto fan. We also got Darren Baptiste. We got Stephen Tadlock, Burke Family 54. We got the House of Indie, Cherokee Meadow. Thanks everyone for jumping in here. We are about to get deeper into Dead End Kids, the Suburban Job. But does anyone have any questions in the chat about the first volume or what to expect maybe in the second volume? Or should we just hold off on those second volume questions till we show?
Oh yeah, we got to get into the second volume in general. We'll save that for the end, but definitely let us know why we've got Frank here. If you guys have any questions, this is a rare opportunity. We're live. Brian and I don't do the live thing very often, but we're here with Frank right now. It's a rare opportunity to talk to the man himself who has created this world, because we're going to get into it, but we're talking about 2 different volumes, 2 different sets of kids. There's some similarities here, but the vibe of these books are just very similar. I almost, when I was thinking about the way Dead End Kids is structured, I thought anthology, but that's almost a bad way to put it, because it feels more like True Detective, where like the vibe is similar, but the characters can be completely different.
American Horror Story or
season. Yeah, the aesthetic is very, very much on point. It's on brand, but definitely a new cast of characters, kind of delve into. What was it like? Was that something that you knew going into that you wanted to do before you even started writing the first volume, or was that sort of in reaction to the success of the first volume of how do I play that out from here?
Honestly, I wrote the first volume not thinking there would be more. I wrote the first volume thinking I would lose my hat and be in a hole for a while. But it was a story I was excited to tell, and I wanted to tell it, so I did. I'll definitely get into this a little more when we start talking about the book, but there were a couple of reasons why I wanted to work with a new cast, and that True Detective analogy is pretty on point. Like, that's exactly what it was. Like, I watched True Detective season 3 last year, and that got me thinking about how I could tackle this franchise, but without like kind of undercutting the original story.
Mm-hmm.
So we got a nice little presentation that you've got prepared to get into Dead End Kids, a Suburban Job. We want to go through that, right?
Yeah, let's do it.
Go ahead and bring that up on the screen here.
Look at that. I'm official as hell.
I know. I was going to take credit for putting this together, but Frank came with materials.
Well, and all jokes aside, we've talked about this on the channel before, not to make Frank's head any bigger or anything like that, but we've talked about this before. This is part of the secret sauce to independent comics and creator-owned comics is a creator's ability to go out and sell their stuff, and there's few that do it better than Frank. And putting together this presentation, it certainly makes Brian and my job a lot easier, and it's really amazing. So I think you're going to get a good feel of the Suburban Job and what the this book is going to look like when it hits comic shops soon.
Yeah. So let's dive right in. This opening slide was just sort of like a little preview of what's to come. Real quick, for anyone who wasn't in here for the first few minutes, just a real quick recap of the original Dead End Kids, Dead End Kids Volume 1. It's Stand By Me meets the Hardy Boys, set in 1999. It's three friends trying to solve their friend's murder, but really it's a story about childhood trauma and the power of community and friendship and kind of cheesy stuff like that. That's not really all that cheesy. So here we've got the original covers from the original series with art by Chris Mad. On the interiors we had Nenad Sabitakainen. On letters we had Sean Reinhart. And on story edits, I had some help from Paul Aller, whose name you might remember or recognize rather from Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles or the IDW G.I. Joe series that's currently running. So that's the original volume. So if we switch over to the next slide, Volume 2, Suburban Job. New cast, new time and place, new crime, same Dead End Kid look and feel. So we talked about this a second ago. When Dead End Kids 1 came out, the first issue of the first series, it did much better than sort of anyone could have anticipated. And there were some conversations between myself and SourcePoint Press about whether I wanted to do more of it. And honestly, like the success of the first volume was pretty overwhelming. For a solid 2 months, almost daily, I had retailers calling me, asking me if they could get copies of the first issue, and I'm not even sure how they got my cell phone number. So it was just kind of like a trial by fire and a lot of kind of unexpected stress. But we got through it, and the book was really successful, and I'm super grateful. But when SourcePoint came and asked me if I was interested in doing more, I was kind of stressed out. I was working on No Heroine at the time. I actually wrote the first issue of No Heroine before I wrote Dead End Kids, and then came back to it. And that was on the schedule for this year. So there was a lot going on at the time. And for anyone who read the first volume, the ending it's got a pretty fine point on it. So between not wanting to undercut the first series, having a lot on my plate, and being a little overwhelmed, I wasn't sure I wanted to do more, but I don't like to close doors. So I said maybe. Sort of a soft maybe. We'll see what happens. So then, the first volume came out and came and went, and the winter rolled in, and I got a little downtime, and I got to start thinking about it a little more. And there were really kind of two things I wanted to figure out. The first one was how to tell the story without sort of undercutting the first one, like I keep saying. And the other thing was sort of like, what is the sort of core concept, sort of maybe the question or emotional engine I want to kind of explore. Every book I do has sort of something very personal to me at the heart of it. With Dead End Kids, it was childhood trauma. With No Heroine, it was the sort of path to recovery from addiction that people in my life have gone through and I've witnessed. So I had to find something like that and the right way to tell it. So now we can swipe over to the next slide and pause there for a moment. So Dead End Kids 2, or Dead End Kids, The Suburban Job. The sort of elevator pitch for it is it's three kids. It's familiar, I know. It's three kids in 2008 who are all the loved ones, relatives, sons, brothers, sisters of people who died on or because of 9/11. It's three new characters, sort of all going through three very real, very different experiences in a post 9/11 world. And it's sort of, for me, like that 9/11 emotional anchor was kind of the key to unlocking the story. Let me say first and foremost that the idea was never to do something like what I call tragedy porn. Like, I wasn't gonna write a book about 9/11 and make a bunch of money off of it. That's just, it's not a good look. It's not something I was interested in doing. But having grown up in central New Jersey on the coast, in a place where I could look across the Raritan Bay and see lower Manhattan on a clear day, 9/11's, for the better part of 20 years now, really had a really impactful place in my life, sort of top to bottom. And thinking about that over the last 18, 19 years is really, I've realized just what a monumental moment that is, and how it's affected so many people in so many ways. And I was really interested in exploring, what those effects were down the line. We're 20 years down the line now, almost. The book is set 7 years after the events, and I wanted to see, what's a few kids who were young at the time and grew up a little bit more, what their lives would look like if, after the events of 9/11. That all said, it would be a Dead End Kids book without a crime aspect. So this time around, it's a heist story. All right, so here you can see the cover for Dead End Kids, Suburban Job #1. We've got Chris Med back on the covers, sort of same aesthetic from the original series, but with a little bit of a little bit more liberty with the colors and some more interesting choices. We wanted to kind of keep it the same but freshen it up. So we've got our three main characters. In the center, we've got Tori. On the left, we've got Amna, and on the right, we've got Brian. Just really tried to incorporate some of the World Trade Center imagery, but in like a tasteful way, without kind of relying on it to be the cover, but also really putting together a single image that kind of sold the idea of the book. If you've read a Dead End Kids book, that it's a crime book. It's about kids going through some stuff, and then the imagery kind of takes care of the rest of the details. We've got the original crew back for the heist story. So we've got Nanad back on art and color. We've got Sean back on letters. Paul Alley did not help with edits this time around, but I assure you that the story is just as good. So this is going to be our main cover by Chris Mad, who did No Heroine with me. It's one of my favorite covers he's ever done. It's gorgeous, it's stunning, and there's some stuff on there that you might not really understand until you read the book and then you go back and look at it. So I think that it's a pretty powerful cover. So then a lot of people on No Heroine asked me if we were going to do incentive covers, and we ended up doing a 1 in 5 Ben Templesmith cover for No Heroine. That was a really big hit. Like a lot of people dug it and ordered it, and definitely helped with the pre-orders. So we wanted to explore the options for an incentive for this series. And what we came up with was something a little more interesting. So I talked to my buddy Ryan Kincaid, who did a couple of stunning covers for No Heroine, and we put together a 4-part series of covers that one for each issue, each one a 1 in 5 incentive. That when you get them, if you get all 4, you can put them together and it creates sort of one larger image. So it's 4 connecting covers. And if you swing over to the next slide, you can see the sort of the layout. These are, I've seen the first couple already. They're stunning. They look awesome together. And for the collectors in there who are on a little bit of a budget, but who still want to get something a little special, a little rare, these are going to be your option. They're just, I'm really excited for everyone to see all 4 of them together, because it's going to be awesome. If it's anything close to what the layout's were, it's going to be superb. This one might kind of give away what's coming up next. So anyone who's been following any of my books so far, you know that I like to work with Ben Templesmith. Ben's a buddy of mine. He did the Anomaly Comics exclusive variant for Dead End Kids #1, and I got to know him because of that. And when No Heroine rolled around, I hit him up, and he said he'd absolutely love to do a cover. I mean, he's the king of vampires. It's a vampire book, so it made sense to me. So at this point, it's sort of tradition for me to do a cover with Ben. Slide over to the next one. Ben put together our 1 in 10 incentive. A lot of people, when No Heroine was coming out, asked if there was going to be more incentives. I mean, people were asking, will there be a 1 in 25, a 1 in 50? I'm not like a huge fan of high ratio variants. I think they're kind of cash grabs, and nothing against the people doing it, but for me, like that, it just wouldn't feel right asking that much for a comic, I'm all about keeping things affordable and accessible. Oh no. Oop, what happened? Slide back. There we go.
There we go.
All right. Sorry, my computer went to sleep because I wasn't paying attention. So I hit Ben up. I said, hey, we're going to do some incentives for this. It's going to be a 1 in 10 to keep it accessible still, but still making it a little rare, a little more interesting for the people who like to collect. Ben read the first issue, and he took the concept and the characters and his style and like really ran away with it. And you saw on the last screen the couple of covers he's done for the books already. This one's definitely my favorite one, and there's so much sort of drama in it, and it's like keep saying gorgeous. So that'll be a 1 in 10 cover for retailers to order. For every 10 they order, they can order one of this, and some lucky sons of bitches will get their hands on them. All right, scrolling forward now, one more slide.
Yeah, we showed a little leg on that last slide before prematurely, but we're getting to it now.
Yeah. Another thing that my books I think have become kind of known for is the retailer exclusive. So I'm not even going to bullshit anyone. We're definitely doing them. We're taking a slightly different approach this time around. We'll have a group of retailers. They're already locked in. All of them are locked in. Artists are being finalized now. There will be fewer retailers this time around, and what we're doing is we're going to curate sets of covers. So each retailer will work with a single artist to create a set of covers for issues 1 through 4. The sets might be connecting, they might be visually similar, like the Esteban Salinas set for Dead End Kids #1 that Black Cape Comics did. I always think back to that. It's kind of like our David Fincher crime vibe, but all the covers are a little bit different, but look like they're part of the set. So we wanted to make it so that way they're more collectible and we're fewer to keep track of and less balls to juggle. Because honest to God, doing 25 variants for No Heroine and variations of the metal, virgin, black and white, like it's a lot to keep track of. It's a lot of different covers and back covers and credits pages to produce. And in the interest of transparency, like this is just a little bit simpler of an approach, but it's also, I think, like I said, it's a little more curated. I was interested in, and I love variant sets. I think that people always want the #1 and never come back for the #2 or the #3 or the #4 and so on. And I think that with the right artist and the right aesthetic and the right, marketing, you can really put together something nice that's collectible and drive some, 2s and 3s and 4s out the door. And I've seen some of the early stuff already. Like we've got some really, really cool special stuff coming. Can't say anything more than that right now, but you've got a preview of some of the retailers we'll be working with, a couple of repeats from past books that I really enjoyed working with, a couple new ones in the mix, and a few surprises along the way. So I'm pretty excited about those. Like I know people like the retailer exclusives, so we wanted to put together something special this time around.
Yeah, especially like Brian.
We just had Mel V join the chat, and guess what he put?
What?
Still can't find a copy of No Heroine #1.
I think there was somebody in the chat who said they had copies.
Yeah, Mel, scroll up in the chat, bud.
But yeah, I gotta say, Brian and I have certainly had our hand in producing exclusive variants. I think there's been a lot of talk amongst retailers about some of the ways that variants for like this book are being approached. I gotta say, I really love it. I appreciate it because this is your property, right? Your franchise. And it's kind of, I like the way you use the term curated, because it's really the best term when we're talking about developing these variants. Something that I appreciated from my initial conversations with you a couple of years ago was the way, like, and it was the first thing I thought about when you sent the PDF with the book, and it was, I'm glad that Dead End Kids trade dress is back. Like those little details that just really drive home a book. And I remember talking to you right after Dead End Kids had just released the 3rd issue, and I was really excited. We were talking in Baltimore, and I had mentioned a couple artists that we were working with, and you were immediately like, yeah, that's not the kind of art that we're looking to work with. This is the kind of art we're looking to work with. Mm-hmm. And I gotta say, not a lot of creators would take that response. Most of the creators we work with, they're just happy to make a sale and they'll take whatever. I actually was, while thrown by that initially, was really respect that, because I think that's kind of what works so well with your properties, is that there's, from every book that gets released, it kind of has your stamp of approval on it. And I think that you get that aesthetic, whether you're talking incentive variant, retailer exclusive variant, or the regular floppy that's hitting the shelf on Wednesday. They all kind of have that same feel and vibe. And I think that's unique. I think that's definitely different. You can look at 2 different books from whether it's a big 2 or an independent book, and they can look like they're completely different properties. So I think that's kind of been part of the secret sauce. I think that's really smart. And I love the sets thing. That's something that Brian and I have advocated. We said when we started our program, we didn't want to do like a mini series and only do issue 1. You leave a lot on the table and you're not really supporting the series for what it really is. And then your ability to really work with those retailers. And I got to say that Ryan Kincaid variant set, I think, is another one example of that. That's going to be a set you're going to want to put together issues 2, 3, and 4, as well as not that issue 1. You may see that one may be available. Pay attention to those issues 2, 3, and 4. That's where it's going to get tougher, and you're going to want that whole set. Ryan Kincaid and Ben Templesmith, 2 great choices.
Yeah, it's something I think about a lot, because the exclusive thing was something that I didn't really know a lot about before Dead End Kids. Like it was something that SourcePoint had done and built relationships for, and I kind of inherited from them. And I'm a pretty picky person, like with what I like to read and what I enjoy, and I made it a point to, once I understood what was going on with incentives and retailer exclusives, to be very involved with, I keep coming back to that word curate, but with making sure that the artist is a good fit for the book. Like there have been a lot of artists who I've wanted to work with, but their art wasn't the right vibe for the book. And I have a huge list of people I'd love to work with down the line, and on a future project where the art makes sense. But I don't know, like I just really want to deliver the best product that I can. Like like that trade dress for Dead End Kids, the first volume that came back for the second volume that you mentioned, that's something I developed. It's something like I poured a lot of time over, and it carries over throughout the book. Like it's on the inside cover, it's on the back cover. Like I want, when people pick up one of my books, whether it's No Heroine or even Grief had this, I want them to feel like there's a weight to it, that there's thought put into it, that Like nothing against no one. I'm not going to name publishers, but some variants are just pages from the inside of the book, recolored. Some variants are just re-releases of the same art with different color. Some variants are just art that doesn't even talk about the story. It doesn't have a whole lot of meaning behind it, and that's fine. People like that. I don't personally, and that's just not something I want to throw on the cover of one of my books just to sell a few copies. I want people to be getting the best looking art, the best way from the best artists that I can work with, and I want it to be meaningful. Like I love this Chris cover or this Chris Mad cover for number 1, because when you read that first issue and you get to the end of it and you go back and you look at it, like a ton of things on there make more sense, and you notice things on there that maybe you didn't notice the first time through. And I'm just all about that kind of added value. So like being able to curate a really good list of artists and curate sets of art, I think is just an incredible way to provide more value in the books, to drive sales on further issues. Like we see so many books come out that are number 1 does say 10,000 copies, and then you got like a 70% drop off between 1 and 2 because it was all killer art and then people didn't actually read the story. So I'm just trying to kind of like walk a fine line here between telling good stories, packaging it really well, working with incredible people to make covers for it. Like I want the whole thing to be like top to bottom, soup to nuts, the best product people can get for their money.
No, I think you're doing an absolute great job of it. And you're definitely right. People get that feel when they see your book. That's a Frank Gogol book, whether it's Dead End Kids, whether it's No Heroine, whether it's Grief, has that same look, feel, quality to it.
And I have to say, like working with Source Point Press, they've been incredibly gracious about just letting me make the books I want, how I want. Like no one's ever told me, no, you can't do that, or if there's something, if I had an idea that maybe wasn't the best idea, it was never a no. It was always well, let's talk about this. And I think that has been a really good working relationship that has led to better books that are more or less 99% of the books I meant to put out anyway. So that's awesome. So we've skipped ahead to the next slide. Let's back up to the one right before it real quick. All right. So just for everyone who's still here, still listening, here's the important info one more time. Dead End Kids Suburban Job is coming out. It's official. It's on the calendar. It's a 4-issue miniseries. Pre-orders are going to start in November for number 1, and then number 2 in December, and so on. The first issue will be on sale in January. We're going to have that main cover by Chris Mad. We're going to have that 1 in 5 connecting set by Ryan Kincaid across all 4 issues. And on the first issue, we'll have a 1 in 10 incentive from Ben Templesmith. And then we have, as I keep saying, a nice curated list of retailers and artists putting together really cool sets of covers. And so I'll have more info on that as those things shape up and there's some stuff to talk about. So for anyone who's stuck around this long, thank you. And I know I can ramble a little bit, and staring at me talk for a while is not the most fun. But I like to keep people on their toes, and I like to do cool shit for people. And I wanted to put together a little surprise announcement for the end of this, something that hadn't been shared before, and then is kind of fun to do. And in the spirit of this being a sequel, I want to do something kind of in honor of the original series. So if we can slide over to the next slide. Everyone who's ever read one of my books and has followed any of the books knows I'm a pretty big fan of doing announcement variants. There was the C2E2 Dead End Kids number 1 early version that came out like 6 months before the book or 5 months before the book. And then this year we did Chris Callahan No Heroine number 1 announcement variant that went through a couple of versions and was selling like crazy.
A monster.
An
absolute monster.
And Frank might have a few copies of each version left, so I don't know if you missed out, hit me up. But I wanted to do an announcement variant. I think that they're cool, they're fun, they get people excited about the book early. They give people a little, advanced preview of what's to come. And like I said, I wanted to do something that kind of dug into the idea of a sequel. And you guys, again, if you've been following along and you've read Dead End Kids last year, you might remember a certain San Diego Comic-Con cover that we did. If we slide on to the next slide.
Actually, the surprise is there isn't one for this one, right?
Yeah. No. But if you were at San Diego Comic-Con last year, you might remember that Philip Sevey, who is famous now for his book Triage. He was the artist on Tomb Raider, Dark Horse for a few volumes. He's currently inking Kanto with Drew Zucker and David Boer. He did this killer, just really iconic cover for Dead End Kids. I'd say it's, if not my favorite, top two of the covers from the first series. So we wanted to do an announcement variant. We wanted to make it something of a sequel. So we had Phil back to do the announcement cover for Dead End Kids, the Suburban Job, and that's on the next slide. And there it is. So we've got art by Phil Sevey. This information is actually wrong because I didn't update the slide. It's actually 75 copies, so it's a little more limited than it says. But these will be on sale tomorrow at 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. PST. They'll be on my web store. I'll be handling all that myself, taking the orders, processing, shipping them out, and getting all the complaints about damaged copies. But
that's
yeah,
another thing that the viewers might not be aware of, Frank, is you also have a newsletter, right? That you offer a lot of exclusives and insider tips. And if you're a fan of Frank's books, you definitely want to sign up for Frank's newsletter, right?
Yeah. Anyone who's on the newsletter actually saw this art last Tuesday. I do just about everything early in there. Nobody wants to give up their email address, but if you're willing to, I'll make it worth your while. We do exclusive covers up in there. Lots of news. I was talking about Dead End Kids 2 in there last year.
You actually have Phil Sevey in the chat asking how he can get a copy of this, by the way.
Tell him it'll be like $400 or $500. I'm kidding. I got comps for Phil. Don't worry, buddy.
Well, and I love my reader buzz and all of that, but I'll say this to everybody out there in the Simpleman's Comics family: if you consider yourself a flipper or a speculator, if you put yourself into those categories and you're not on Frank's newsletter, you're missing out. Like that's the kind of information that we all in that market die for, is that early info. And if you've paid any attention to what Dead End Kids, the first volume, did, if you paid any attention to what No Heroine has done, you're leaving money on the table, boys and girls. So definitely sign up for that newsletter. It is vital.
I mean, Phil wasn't like exactly shy. There's a bunch of money on the cover. It's just it speaks for itself.
He's letting you know. You already know. That's the money you get back from eBay.
Yeah, well, with all those covers come, all those dollars are coming my way. No, I'm just kidding. But so this guy it'll be limited to 75 copies. It'll be on sale tomorrow, 2 p.m. Eastern, 11 a.m. PST. They'll be on my web store. I'll post a link to them at 2 p.m. 11 a.m. And first come, first serve. Limit one per person. I don't have a way to limit it on my web store, but if anyone tries to buy more than one, they'll just get a refund, because I want as many people as possible to enjoy this book and to be able to own Phil's art. So I'm excited about this. For those of you who are friends with me on Facebook, follow me on Facebook. I'll make a post about this as soon as we're done with the live stream, and you can just drop a comment there, and I'll shoot you a reminder right before it goes live.
And when you post that, also, we'll be sure to share that out on our social as well.
Yeah, I don't expect these to last too long, so don't sleep on it.
No, this is definitely one you're going to want to be ready and prepared at 2 p.m.
Yeah, so that's our show. I am happy to take any questions, no matter how personal.
We had a couple questions in the chat. I'm gonna scroll back up to, but I also want to say that Frank was nice enough to send Jack and I advanced copies of the PDF for the first book. And if you liked the first Dead End Kids volume, this one's just as good. I mean, it starts off, doesn't even really let you catch your breath. It's like, oh, what's going on? And then just kind of builds up from there. And before you know it, you're introduced to some characters, and there's kind of like you're left with the cliffhanger right at the end of the first issue.
It does that thing that I love in first issues, where you're almost pissed at the writer in the last panel, that you don't have more to read? Like, how do you get me? It's like a great cliffhanger at the end of a TV episode. But back in the day, kids, you had to wait a week to watch the next episode. Now I know we're binging everything, but it's that thing that just gets you coming back for issue 2. So I haven't read issue 2, and I'm excited to see where this is all going to take us. And that's just crucial for a first issue.
So we do have a question from Hawaiian Punch 72. And of course he has to put a name in here that I'll probably butcher. But he asks, will Zoe Lachey, Lecce?
Oh, Zoe Lachey. Zoe Lachey.
See, they got Gore the Guy Butcher. I'm Brian the Name Butcher. But will they be doing cover? Are they doing covers?
Is Zoe Lachey doing covers for Dead End Kids?
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
I wouldn't say no, but I won't confirm.
Also, if you're in the chat and you have questions, start putting them in the chat, because I'm going down them right now. We got Frank here. You can see he's straight up giving you all the info.
Right.
Listen, man, just ask me personal questions too. You guys want to see copies of the book? I got a couple early copies. I don't know, where's my camera there. So we got the first copy. I got that Kincaid cover.
Incredible.
I got that Temple Smith cover. I'm gonna sell these on eBay for like $50 a piece. Just
right.
Get in there. What do they call that when you vote up your own eBays?
Oh, shill bidding.
Something like that.
Yeah.
Shilling.
And like we said at the beginning of this video, if you haven't read Dead End Kids, the first volume, we put a link in the description of this live stream that will take you to Source Point's web store, where you can get volume 1 of the trade paperback for $9.99 or digital on PDF, right?
Yeah.
Frank, will the 49ers win this weekend? That comes from Adrian Reyes.
No, they won't, and I'm not happy about it. They should have won this weekend. I don't know how they lost to the fucking Eagles.
But that kind of reminds me, like, especially when college football, you always hear about teams are rebuilding. My Florida State Seminoles, I think, are rebuilding right now. That
whatever you got to tell
the
yourself.
Giants for the last 10 years.
Yeah, but that doesn't happen with you. Between Dead End Kids Volume 1 to No Heroine to Dead End Kids Volume 2, that you always hear that phrase for some of those other teams, which I won't give them the credit for. They don't rebuild, they just regroup. That's what you tend to do, all the way from your Ringo Award-winning Grief, right?
Yeah, listen. I don't. The way I always say it, and I don't know if this is like jackassy or whatever. It's just what I do. They say, I don't think it's true, but they say that if a shark ever stops moving, it'll die. Like, I just don't ever want to stop moving. Like, you're only as good as the last thing you did, and if the last thing you did is 2 years ago, nobody's talking about you.
We see that. That's true.
And the hustle really does pay off. Like, I mean, as long as you're making good books, and I won't say mine are good or bad. Like, that's for other people to decide. But let's assume they're good because people have told me they are. It's paying off. Like, to keep the hustle up and keep putting books out. Like, without naming names, I can tell you that I've got pitches that were asked of me, not that I submitted, but publishers came to me and asked me to pitch them, from 2 of the top 10 publishers. One of them's top 5 for sure. So I have pitches with them right now that they asked me for, and like, that wouldn't happen if Dead End Kids didn't pop off, and I didn't bust my ass to make another one and put out No Heroine and stuff like that. And it's just, I've had Marvel ask me to submit stuff twice now. Like, it's just, hard work really does pay off. Like, as corny as that fucking sounds, like, it really does pay off. And if you stop working, then the benefits stop rolling in.
We got another question here from Norse Cali. It says, Frank, has anyone approached you about optioning any of your stories, specifically but not limited to Dead End Kids or any of your other works? We're like between two ferns going on right now.
No. Ask me again when issue 4 of Dead End Kids 2 comes out.
There you go.
And I can tell you that I had an email from my agent today.
Darren Baptiste asks, what do you have planned after No Heroine and Dead End Kids 2? Or the Suburban Job?
I have 3 pitches out with big publishers that I should be hearing back about soon. They would both be out in the next year. I've got my next Source Point book lined up that'll come out next summer. So essentially, we'll roll into talking about the next book as Dead End Kids 2 number 4 comes out. It never stops. It's not a sequel; it's a new book. So be a fresh topic to talk about come April.
But yeah, you mentioned that earlier, and Brian talked about not rebuilding. I think that we've seen that so much with, especially in creator-owned comics. A creator can kind of get the market's attention, especially when you're trying to hit like that trifecta of retailers, readers, collectors, and you're trying to get everybody on board. You can do that for a book, but how do you capitalize onto that second book? And now that you've proven, okay, you can do it not just once, but twice, and it can get bigger and it can snowball. And now you're on your 3rd book, and there's the anticipation for that is going to most likely I think you're going to outshine what you did with No Heroine. At this point now, it's about what's that next step. So I'm glad to hear that I love the things you're doing with Source Point, but I'm glad you're also talking to other people and branching out and seeing what else is out there, because I certainly think that we're going to see you do some big things in the future. I know Brian and I had a conversation with a publisher about a year ago, and we were asked to throw out some names that we thought they should pay attention to. And you were one of the names we definitely brought up. I'm not surprised at all to see some of those things kind of coming your way. So I'm definitely going to have you come back on whenever the next project, next Source Point, next any Frank Gogol project. We're going to have to bring you on and let the people know about it.
Dude, I appreciate that, and if I'll be like super honest with you guys. When these other publishers approached me, I had a conversation with Source Point about it, and the truth is, I offered them first look at all the things I was pitching. Awesome. Source Point has been really good to me. They've let me make the books I want the way I want. They've paid my royalties on time. Their contracts are incredible, and I'm not losing money on books. So I plan to, for as long as they'll have me, continue to put out books with Source Point. But the conversation we had was it was an honest one. Like, if just throwing out hypotheticals here, but if a TKO came to me, or if Boom, Aftershock, or somebody with a bigger, different audience came, and I could go over there and put a book out with them and build a relationship there and net some of their audience, and then bring them back over to a Source Point book, that's everybody wins, right? Like,
yes.
It's a kind of synergy. So like I said, I gave Source Point first look at everything that I was planning to pitch. They earmarked a couple that they were interested in, and I didn't pitch those. What was left over, I worked on and made the best pitches I had and sent them off. And I think part of the reason I've been really successful is because I'm interested in other people's success, not my own success. Like, I want to see Source Point be a successful company. I want to see them, be the next dark horse. Like, I feel like they're primed to do that with the right moves and the right amount of time. And making good books and helping them grow their brand and my own at the same time. Like, again, it's all about synergy. So, like I said, as long as they'll publish me, I will 100% keep putting books out with them. And I've got some real weird shit that I want to do that most other publishers wouldn't let me do.
So you got some stuff coming up also, like a scene in the chat. Stephen Tadlock says November 5th, you're going to be on with him on Get to the Point, right?
Yeah. So I am self-described, but I think most people would agree. Like, I'm pretty notorious for doing PR blitzes. Like, I treat every book like it's like a presidential campaign. Like, I'm just out there talking to anybody who will fucking listen to me. So prior to this live event, I think I've got 20 podcasts banked that are starting to come out tomorrow. I got another 20 or 25 on the calendar. I've got some more YouTube stuff coming up. One of the live events I'll be doing is Source Point's Get to the Point segment that they do, sort of a creator focused thing. So that'll be on November 5th. And then you'll just see me everywhere there's a camera or a microphone until I die or the book comes out, whichever happens first.
That's another thing also we have a lot of viewers that also have YouTube channels and do one big comic community. Make sure you're following Frank, because he'll even put it out there like, hey, if you have a podcast or a YouTube channel, you know, I want to come on. So if you guys want Frank Gogol on your channel, make sure you're following him and
Hit me up.
reach out to him.
Yeah, hit me up. I'll talk to anybody about anything.
Well, we definitely appreciate you having on, and we're super excited for Dead End Kids Volume 2. I know we talked a little bit asking, we got that maybe type answer when we had you on to talk about No Heroine, but here we are now talking Dead End Kids 2. This pre-orders in November, releases in January. So make sure you guys get those pre-orders in, because you know Jack and I are always on here talking about how important pre-orders are. That way you can secure those copies, right, Jack?
Absolutely. Make sure you're talking to your LCS wherever you buy your comics from. If not, of course, be sure to check out our channel sponsors, frankiescomics.com, as well as blackcapecomics.com. Two great stores where you can pre-order comics. And I know that they're going to be talking about, for sure, Dead End Kids before FOC date hits.
Yeah, look, I stump pre-orders every chance I get. You guys kind of covered it for me this time, but thinking about getting some T-shirts made that say pre-order or forever hold your peace or something like that. You know,
I love it.
Listen, pre-order the book for $4 or pay $40 for it on eBay later.
Yeah.
Like that seems like a real easy choice.
Yeah, Mel V, pre-order the book, or don't be in the comment section saying you didn't get the book. You know, that's what the pre-order period's for.
And you know what? Everyone gets a pass on Dead End Kids Volume 1, right? Nobody knew who I was, but now you know. Like,
zero passes.
Now it's your fault.
Yep.
So get out there, support your local comic shop. Give me all your fucking money. I'm kidding.
Well, again, Frank, we thank you for having you on, and everyone in the chat, we thank you guys for tuning in and watching. Make sure you guys get that pre-order in. This is Brian Jack with Superman's Comics. We'll see you guys in the next video.